This is Arana Nation, and this evening I'm here with the leader of the National Citizens Alliance of Canada, Stephen Garvey. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Michael. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to having a dialogue with you and answering any questions.
I know, it's actually an honor that you managed to take this time to do this with me because I've been dying to ask you some questions, and I know I've got a large audience. Most of them are on the right, and they fluctuate from leaning Tory to leaning PPC. Some actually like you too, but the name recognition needs to be more. So that's why I decided, and also because I've been researching about you, and I like what I hear so far, and I just want to ask you some questions. But first of all, I want to ask you. So a lot of people by now know that the conservatives, Andrew Scheer, they're suspect at most when it comes to being populist and being country first. But a lot of people on the populist side, or claim to be on the populist side, are going to the People's Party of Canada, led by Maxime Bernier. And I want to ask you, why should people go for the NCA as opposed to the PPC if they call themselves a populist nationalist, Canadian first?
That's a big question. I could talk a lot about that, but the first thing I'll say to people is read the policies, read the platform, go into NCA policies, compare them to Bernier's policy, and you will see a stark difference.
Right.
Another thing we have to keep in mind is Bernier, he's a self proclaimed libertarian. You can't be a libertarian and a populist at the same time. They're in contradiction.
Right.
So he's not a populist. He's pretending to be a populist. NCA is true populist nationalists.
Right. Now,
So read our policies, but I can talk a bit about Bernier. We've done the research, the facts on him.
yeah. What is your beef? What's your main beef with
It's not a
Bernier?
beef.
Or not beef, but like, what's your why?
Views.
Why would you not join the PPC? Like,
He's a globalist.
okay,
He's a globalist libertarian. He's tied to the Koch brothers, without question.
okay. So
He
when
was executive vice president of the Montreal Economic Institute,
right.
which is connected to the Atlas Network, which is funded in the millions by the Koch brothers, who support globalist trade.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to touch upon because one of my big issues with him is economic globalism. And he's talked about getting rid of supply management. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I support protecting our farmers especially. And I want to know what's your opinion on supply management. Should it be changed? What's your view on free trade and and your differences between Bernier and yourself when it comes to trade? Because that's one of my big issues with Bernier.
Oh, 100% with us too. He supports TPP, which is globalist trade. He also supports globalist trade with China, India. He does somersaults. So this guy is just a Koch brothers shill as far as we're concerned. Right. And we want to distinguish smart, fair trade versus globalist trade, which is all about globalists, the middle people, and governments, and it's harming the producers and the taxpayers. And let's be one clear to our listeners out there. There's no such thing as free trade in this world. I challenge everyone out there to go look into the Shanghai Free Trade Zone. Go look in the Mexico Free Trade Zone. They're anything but free trade. So as soon as you hear someone like Bernier talking free trade, he's just spinning and BSing you.
Right.
Bottom line.
I've always said...
that's the truth.
Yeah.
We have a video on that.
Personally, I've always said any trade deal where a business would feel it better, where a business would be able to move to a different country and operate at a cheaper rate than the country that they're from, is not a fair trade deal as far as I'm concerned. Would you agree with that? Like, for example, if America is doing a trade deal with Mexico and the Mexican worker is earning way less than the American worker, we shouldn't be trading with that nation, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the problem is most of the world has cheaper labor than Canada.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right? So we gotta somehow make up the ground. We support a major cut in the bureaucracy. We support cuts, reasonable cuts in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
But we wouldn't do what Bernier did with the wireless industry and scrap all the regulation, because what happened was it formed an oligopoly of TELUS, Bell, Rogers,
Yep.
and now we have the highest wireless rates in the Western world.
Right.
So going to the extreme of Bernier, he likes to say it's freedom. It's not freedom. It's going to cost you a hell of a lot more. You at home, you're going to have less freedom because you're going to have less money.
Right.
So you need to find a balance, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a huge red flag on Bernier, because we went straight into his policies. And we saw, if you go into his policies right now, he may change it in the meantime, but he's doing somersaults over TPP, which is all just globalist trade.
Even Donald Trump mentioned how TPP would have been such a terrible thing for America and this part of the world. Clinton originally supported it and then backed off of it. So I agree with you on that 100%.
Yeah, I got to clarify. The problem with the Canadian electorate is about 97% of them don't read policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So 2 years ago, we had a business group in Ontario approach us. And they were looking at setting up a party.
Mm-hmm.
And these were disgruntled conservatives. And they didn't like our name. They wanted to make a phony name to attract liberals.
Right.
And guess what happened?
What?
This party emerged.
Absolutely.
So this wasn't Bernier's little baby. He just came in through this disgruntled group.
Right.
And what they're doing is just, the bottom line, they're just, it's just a fraud. It's not what it is.
I want to ask you, because you mentioned cutting bureaucracy. Now, the average Canadian, they are afraid of cuts. That's one of the things that is troubling Mr. Ford right now. Now, be very specific. What would you get rid of in terms of bureaucracy in the Canadian government? What are some of the top things you get rid of?
The bottom line, I think people need to know the history. Harper came in 2005 saying, I'm going to cut the government, transparency, accountability. Well, he did the reverse. The federal bureaucracy grew to historic levels unseen. He actually grew to a level that even Trudeau doesn't touch.
And how so?
And that's over 282,000 federal employees.
Mm-hmm.
So, not surprisingly, Bernier is saying he will cut too. So how can you believe these mainstream politicians? But the bottom line, the government is growing it's grown since 2005 by almost 24%.
Right. So what would you get rid of?
We are committed to a 50% cut in the federal government.
Okay.
Hopefully within 1 year. It may take longer.
So would it be like are there specific departments that you get rid of, or
100 agencies, departments? We want to cut the ministries down to a basic 10.
Okay, basic. So basically 10 ministries.
10 ministries. Yeah. We would merge some of them.
Yep.
Some of them we would just cut outright, like this democracy ministry, which is a complete waste of money.
Right. Ministry of...
The gender one is a complete waste of money. Women rights.
Right.
We have women rights in Canada. We don't need a ministry on it.
Yeah. Well, I've those, when they say ministry for Indigenous affairs, women affairs, those should all be, as far as I'm concerned, linked into one Ministry of Human Services.
Exactly.
Instead of just this and this. Mr. Garvey, I just want to take a quick break. I want to see, because remember our time, I'm going to do part 2 immediately. You guys stick around for part 2 of my interview with Stephen Garvey, leader of the National Citizens Alliance of Canada. Be right back.
Thank you.